This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
And welcome in, folks, to another edition of Open Mic Night. I'm your host, Noah Taluki, and on today's episode, the Lions beginning training camp last week. My thoughts on their first week of training camp over in Allen Park. Also, the Pistons making it official. Cade Cunningham, the number one overall pick in this year's NBA draft. He is officially heading to Detroit. My thoughts on him and the Pistons' future. And a quick shout out, actually, to a Detroit legend. We'll do it at the beginning of the show right here, but hopefully everybody had a great weekend out there. And I just wanted to say, so that last part I kind of teased about a tribute to a Detroit legend, if you will. As I'm recording this on a Tuesday night here, I don't really have a lot of time during the day to record these, so I do it at night right after our Lake County Captains game that I'm doing an internship for. And right as I see it, I'm looking to prepare for the podcast, looking at some of the latest news from Detroit sports and all that, and I see that Miguel Cabrera just slugged his 498th home run of his career in their 4-2 victory over the Boston Red Sox. How about that? The big man, he's back. Or is he? I don't know, but that's his 11th home run of the season. It's the first time he's hit double digits in home runs in quite a while, for sure. But 498, I know the Tigers are trying to have some fun with this milestone count in left field, right above the brick wall, where some of the retired numbers are. Like they just retired Jack Morris and Alan Trammell, they put those numbers on. So just above that wall, that brick wall in left center field, they have these kind of like a Miggy's milestone tracker, I think they call it. So they're tracking, his home run totals and his career RBI totals. So it's kind of cool that they pull down the number and all that as soon as he hits it, and he's got to get to 500. Not many players in MLB history, of course, have made it to 500, but that's definitely a really good sign for him. And a guy, he's aging, and obviously the power has not really been there a ton, but it's good to see him trying to chase these milestones, and really good for the Tigers in general. I mean, especially a win over the Boston Red Sox, a good team out there in the AL East, and it's really good to the Tigers, and obviously they've had a winning record since May and all that, so they're playing well down the stretch. Had a good series last week. And we'll see where this team ends up. I mean, hopefully, I'm saying 70 to 75 wins. That would be a nice start before, hopefully, maybe playoffs next year. I know Chris Ilitch already came out and talked about how he wants to, he may want to spend this offseason, and it may not be in the question that it'll be they'll be spending, just like old times, as I like to say. So definitely awesome for the Tigers. I don't want to get too deep into the Tigers, but I just saw that Miggy hit his 498th home run tonight on a Tuesday here against the Red Sox. So thought that'd be really nice to share. One of everyone's favorite Detroit athletes, that's for sure. All right, I want to get into the main news for this week in Detroit, and that's Lions training camp. Everyone wants to hear about how the Lions are doing, and I gotta say, I'm really impressed with the energy at camp. I'm watching a lot of the press conferences and all that, and there definitely is a different type of energy. And you might say, well, we've heard this before. We've seen it with Marty Morningweg coming in with the Harley Davidson. We've seen it with Jim Schwartz and all that, Rod Marinelli. But this, just to me, and I haven't been yet. I will be going to training camp sometime in the next couple weeks. I just don't know what day. But from what I've seen, it's very, very different compared to the Matt Patricia era. I mean, it seems like these guys want to play for Dan Campbell. And that's really, really key, because you heard publicly players coming out and saying they did not want to play for Matt Patricia at all. And this guy he was almost like a dictator, in the meeting rooms and all that. But it's very obvious there's not really a whole lot of public problems right now with the Lions. You see some public problems with other teams. I mean, obviously this whole Aaron Rodgers saga and a bunch of other teams having some drama. I mean, the Giants, I heard today, they just got into a fight. Daniel Jones was at the bottom of the pile. I mean, you don't hear any of that with the Lions. Regardless if this team doesn't do well this year or whatever, I think this is at least a step in the right direction, at least what we can see from training camp. And guys want to play for him, like I said. Also, what kind of caught my eye, some of these assistants, Aubrey Pleasant, especially Deuce Staley. Deuce Staley seems to be kind of the emotional leader of the coaching staff, if you will. This is a guy that I've heard has really, been the motivational factor in the meeting rooms and all that. Really a guy that can bring the team together and kind of say those speeches, like one of those guys. Every coaching staff has one of those guys, whether it's the head coach or not. But Deuce Staley, the assistant head coach, a longtime player in the NFL, was the assistant head coach and running backs coach with the Philadelphia Eagles. Very, very well respected, and a guy that it looks like right now from the outside looking in, he's doing a great job with being kind of a mentor and pumping the guys up kind of thing with the Lions. So that's definitely awesome to see. Also, one of my thoughts from a couple days ago, and I've never seen this before. And, I get it. I'm young. I haven't been around for a whole long time, but I've never seen this at a training camp before, at least for the Lions, where a guy like Jamal Williams, running back, he's having a lot of fun with the media. I mean, he actually forced a couple of the media members to play rock, paper, scissors to see who would go first in the questions. I mean, I got a kick out of that. When I saw that, watching the daily press conferences with the Lions and seeing that, I mean, that just made me laugh. I couldn't believe it because you never saw this with Matt Patricia. You never really saw this with Jim Caldwell either. Having fun like this with the media. And especially this rock, paper, scissors. And that's who Jamal Williams is. I've come to find out this is really what his personality is. And I heard a couple other questions being asked about him, and he's talking about like Japanese anime and all this, the Japanese cartoon basically. And it's just this guy is a very interesting guy for sure. And a guy I'm really looking forward to seeing how well he does with the Lions. I mean, he's going to be the number 2 running back probably behind DeAndre Swift, but a guy that can really add a veteran presence in the backfield. And also, I mean, he's not a bad player. I mean, he's shown some explosion with Green Bay, and a guy I think the Lions could really rely on. And I know Swift missed a couple games with injuries last year. I don't know, in case he goes down with injury or whatnot, a guy that I think could really step up, and especially with a very veteran offensive line, or at least in some areas. And Sewell was a rookie and all that, but I've heard he's continued to impress as well. And, the Lions just getting into pads. And another thing, too, speaking of getting into the pads, Dan Campbell, interesting enough, he actually, they talk about players and how they're not in pads yet, for the first couple days of training camp. And, how they're out there just trying to get a feel, and it's a league mandate. You can't go into pads until a certain day. And he goes out there and starts calling these guys pajama warriors because they're out there just in T-shirt and shorts and a helmet, And I just thought that was kind of funny that you just call them pajama warriors. He seems to be having a lot of fun with the media as well. It's just, a relaxed environment. Now, does that mean that work's not going to get done? I don't think so. I think guys are motivated to be there, and I think having a fun atmosphere around helps with that. Now, we look at the last regime with Matt Patricia, right? There's a guy, Bill Belichick, and I'm not saying Bill Belichick doesn't like to have fun. I mean, I've heard, behind the scenes he can actually have a decent amount of fun, but there's just it's just a different style of coaching, if you will. And I'm not saying the Patriots don't have fun at all at practice, but I mean, if you look from a media perspective, they're always, promoting how Bill Belichick very serious, all that kind of stuff, no fun, and I think that's what Matt Patricia tried to bring, this no fun, like I'm in control now kind of thing. But, when Bill Belichick's in charge, he has that, he's earned that respect over the years. I mean, with 6 Super Bowls and, all the knowledge that he brings. I mean, he's a veteran. Matt Patricia had zero NFL head coaching experience whatsoever. He wasn't. In my opinion, I didn't think Matt Patricia was his own guy. He was kind of like a Belichick wannabe. Now with Dan Campbell, even though he was coached by guys like I believe he played for Dallas, with Bill Parcells and Sean Payton in New Orleans for a year, guys that he was around. it doesn't seem like he necessarily, is a guy that is, so influenced by, like a Parcells or, guys that he played under. He seems to be his own self, which I think is very key, because as players, you could see through the BS right away. You could see through phoniness. And I don't think there's anything phony about Dan Campbell. And a lot of people might think, well, what's this thing he's talking about, biting kneecaps off, and he's doing up downs with the team. Look, does some of that get a little bit corny after a while to an outsider looking in? Of course. Yes, I think some people would think that that's definitely corny and kind of foolish. And how are guys going to buy in if they see a coach? However, I don't think this is... I think this is just his natural self. I really do. I don't think this was staged. I don't think that whole down-ups thing was staged or anything. Like, I was listening to our good friend Matt Derry and his podcast, Locked On Lions. And, go check out his podcast as well. He's got a lot of great Lions material. He just interviewed Justin Rogers of the Detroit News, the Lions beat writer, and they were talking about how the corniness with Dan Campbell, and how will it translate, and is it even corny, and Justin Rogers actually brought up that when Marty Morningweg came in with a Harley Davidson or something like that, they talked about how it was very, very staged, and there were stories of the PR people saying, to the reporters, wait a little bit here. He's going to do something, very staged. Nothing with Dan Campbell is staged. And I think that's key in terms of having players buy in. Because if you are trying to be someone else, players can see through that. I think it was very evident with Matt Patricia. If you look at Bill Belichick, some people might think, well, yeah, how is he not like Bill Parcells? Because that's who he learned from for 10 years with the Giants. The thing that separated Bill Belichick from Bill Parcells was that Bill Belichick was his own guy. Did he take some principles learned from Bill under Bill Parcells? Of course, but he was his own guy. That's why he became successful. He wasn't trying to be like Bill Parcells. Dan Campbell wasn't trying to be like anyone. He's just being himself. And like I said, players will respond. I think they'll respond to that, and I think they'll genuinely like that. Now, does that mean it's going to translate to wins right away? I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. However, it's a step in the right direction. It's a lot better than what the previous regime was like, and I'm excited to see what the Lions can do. They're going to get those 3 preseason games. It'll be interesting to see how they're going to work it out. I know they play. It'll be the Bills. Bills week 1 of the preseason on August 13th, I believe. Hopefully I'll try to make it out to that, but we'll see. But I'm, like I said, very excited to see how this transitions, and a lot of really good coaches in there. A lot of guys that were ex-players. Seems to be positively rubbing off on the players. I mean, there was a couple of mic'd up videos on YouTube. Jared Goff seemed like he was having a lot of fun out there as well. And, like I said, this is a guy that can really motivate his players by just being himself, and just having fun and really bringing that positive energy to Detroit. And Deuce Staley talked about a lot of this is negativity around here with the media. A lot of SOL. And Dan Campbell has said, I understand why you fans think this, but the past is the past. We have to learn from the past, and we have to move forward. So I think this staff is erasing the old slate completely, and they're starting fresh, and this is a totally different vibe, if you will, in Allen Park. So we'll see how this progresses, but so far after week 1, very, very excited to see the progress. And we'll get into more of the position battles later. I know last week we talked about some of the position battles to look out for, particularly the wide receivers, even some of the safeties, inside linebackers, even some cornerbacks, seeing how Jeff Okudah progresses. We'll get into that, in a later episode. But just my first initial thoughts of this first week of training camp, very, very good. And definitely looking forward to seeing how the players respond and how this progresses through the rest of the season. All right, so that's about it for the Lions, but I did want to add something really fast. This weekend, Calvin Johnson will be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton. Ohio. Great place, by the way. If you ever go to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, really, really cool place. Also, I don't want you guys to forget, because last year they weren't able to have a ceremony, so they're kind of combining the ceremonies from this year and last year. So the inductees from last year will get formally inducted this year. So don't forget about Alex Karras from the class of 2020, who will be technically inducted this weekend. Alex Karras, one of the best defensive tackles in Lions history, and a guy that he took a long time for him to get in. Personally, I think part of that was the 1963 incident with gambling, where the NFL suspended him for the whole year. I believe they also suspended Paul Hornung of the Green Bay Packers, 2 Hall of Famers right there. But, that kind of put a damper on his career. I think that's part of the reason why he didn't get in until now. Also, the Lions, playing for the Lions, of course. But don't forget about him. This is a guy that, was a leader on that Lions defense in the early 60s that was actually coached by Don Shula. Don Shula was the defensive coordinator for the Lions before he went on to become the head coach of the Baltimore, now Indianapolis Colts. So look out for, if you're watching the ceremonies this weekend, make sure to remember Alex Karras. Now, he passed away. He was a big movie star in L.A. after his career was over, and he was 2012, I believe he passed away out in California. A lot of great battles with the great Jerry Kramer, the right guard for the Packers, who actually got in just a couple years ago, another guy that waited a long time as well. So, but let's remember Alex Karras, and let's remember all these Lions greats. Don't worry, guys. Not everything about the Lions history is bad. There are some good moments, and Alex Karras is definitely one of those great moments in Lions history. So, don't forget about him this weekend. I don't want to go into Calvin details. I'm just kind of sick and tired of hearing about, will he bash the Lions? Will he talk about the Lions? Will he, see Rod Wood? Will he talk to anyone from the Lions? I don't want to hear it. It's a great weekend for all these guys, and hopefully Calvin enjoys it. Do I really want Calvin to thank the Lions and all that? Of course. But, we'll have to see. I would definitely encourage you to watch the Hall of Fame. A lot of these speeches are really nice. And, this is the pinnacle of professional football. And, like I said, a great venue at the Hall of Fame, a stadium that was just redone a couple years ago. And really, really hope the Lions can play there one day in the Hall of Fame game. We shall see about that. But, like I said, hopefully you guys watch the Hall of Fame ceremonies. I definitely will be, for sure. All right, last order of business here before we close out the podcast. I want to talk about the Pistons. And I know we don't talk about the Pistons a ton on the podcast, but they did make a big move, obviously, last week with the number 1 overall pick. Bunch of speculation to see if they would trade it or anything like that. I never believed any of that. I thought Cade Cunningham was the Pistons guy from week 1. I mean, from day 1, as soon as they got the lottery gods or whatever you want to call it, the ping pong balls and all that fell in the Pistons' hands, and Cade Cunningham was the guy. And I'm going to admit I'm not really a Pistons fan. If you guys listen, you guys know I'm not really a big Pistons guy, but I respect the franchise. They've won 3 championships. You can't take away any of those championships. And, obviously they've had some nice players and all that through the way. But a team that's really, really struggled, and it goes back to when Bill Davidson sold the team in the late 2000s. And, that transition between him and Gores, and it just, there was nothing really exciting. You go back to the going to work Pistons, Chauncey Billups, Ben Wallace. Was this a team that had a bunch of superstars? No. But it was a team that was, very defensive minded, and, they were exciting. People liked them because they embraced the city. They embraced, going to work, the nitty gritty, kind of like the Bad Boys did. And that got fans excited. After that era was over, it's been nothing. What has excited the Pistons fans in the last just over a decade? Nothing. None of the draft picks, in my opinion, have really excited. Oh, they signed Blake Griffin. Old Blake Griffin with his bad knees. That didn't really get me excited either. This, all of a sudden, gets people excited. And I genuinely mean that. People are excited for Cade Cunningham now. And, to be quite honest, I'm excited too. I want to see what this guy can do. Now, I'm not crowning him the guy yet. Please, I don't want people, he's already thrown out the first pitch at the Tiger game, and people are already thinking he's the savior. Look, I don't want people to do that yet. This team has already seen some bad luck and bad fortunes with their other draft picks. However, I don't think Cade Cunningham is like any of those other picks. I think this guy is actually superstar material. But let's pump the brakes with crowning him yet. Let's see him play in a couple games first before we crown him. But I think part of the hype is just because this town is just so hungry for a winner, hungry for a guy that can, save Detroit sports. And right now, I think Cade Cunningham is a guy that definitely has a lot of potential. I mean, you look at his game from Oklahoma State, the numbers that he put up, his ability to see the court, and there's already people that have said that he already has, vision and IQ, higher than anyone, any rookie should have, so it's definitely a really, really good sign to see. And a guy that really is going to, give energy to the fans, and a guy that he's going to wear a number 2 that was retired for Chuck Daly for winning 2 championships. In my opinion, I don't know why they had to retire that number for Chuck Daly. I don't know why you just don't hang a rafter in the stands or in the banners that says CD or Chuck Daly, or has a nice blazer of him in one of those old suits, those nice suits that he used to wear or something. I don't know why they had to retire number 2, but regardless, Cade Cunningham got permission from the Daly family to wear the number 2, and so that's what he's going to wear. And like I said, there's a young nucleus with the Pistons. They had Sadiq Bey and Isaiah Stewart, 2 guys that made the all-rookie team. Troy Weaver gutted the roster just like I wanted him to, just like a lot of people wanted him to. They got rid of Blake Griffin. They got rid of Derrick Rose. Basically, they were playing almost all rookies or very low-experienced guys, which is okay. It's basically a developmental year, and that's fine. That's fine for these guys to develop. You throw them into the fire their rookie year, see how they respond. And for the most part, even though the win, there wasn't a lot of wins, but that's okay because it wasn't all about winning this season. It was all about, getting these guys the necessary experience and all that. So it's a young nucleus. And then the Pistons today going out and signing Kelly Olynyk, a nice backup center, 3 years, $37 million. So it's the future is definitely bright for the Pistons. And it's trending in the right direction. But as a outsider looking in, I definitely want to see them develop. I want to see them, get up to at least 500 this next season. I don't want to see any more losing. But a team that's definitely on the rise. And I don't know if I'm comfortable saying this, but I think Cade Cunningham might be the face of Detroit sports now. I really do. And he hasn't even put a uniform on. He hasn't even played a minute of basketball yet. He may be. You look at Miggy, how old he is. Everyone's pretty much new on the Lions, so I don't know if they can really have a face of Detroit. And then there's the Red Wings with maybe Dylan Larkin, who on any other team would probably be like a second or third line center. So I don't know, but at least from a superstar standpoint, for a town that's been very starved of a superstar, he's the guy that has the most potential for it. So I'm excited to see what the Pistons can do. Maybe I'll watch a couple games. I don't know. I don't have a lot of time to watch Pistons games, and heck, I really haven't had much time to watch Tiger games this year either. Just doing my internships and a bunch of other stuff I have going on, but I check up as much as I can on these guys, and reading the scores and the scoreboards, and I love reading the Free Press and Detroit News. They have a lot of great stuff as well. But thanks again for tuning in, folks. Make sure to look at all the other content on the podcast network. Doc and Jock, they have a great podcast, obviously, and wrestling podcast, Michigan podcast, Michigan football coming up. Hopefully we'll get some college football talk lately in the next couple weeks as well. Also, the Fan Report, they do a great job. And don't forget to check out John Macaroon's content, guys. He's there at Lions training camp asking questions. He is the Lions beat writer basically for Sports Illustrated. So he's definitely a great resource to look at for Lions stuff. They puts out videos with Vito Churko as well on the website. So make sure to check out John Macron's stuff on material, I should say, for SI Lions. But that'll do it, folks, for this week's edition. And make sure to tune in next week. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of talk about, especially with the Lions, and maybe a little bit of college football as well. But thanks again, folks, for tuning in. Make sure to join us next week, only on Open Mic Night.